What's up, everybody? Hudson here, and welcome back to CrossFit Coach Answers Your Fitness Questions Part 2. First one did pretty well. I got a lot of good feedback on it. And for those of you that don't follow me on Instagram, every so often, probably like once a week on Instagram, I do an Ask Me a Question type feature. And some of you guys ask amazing questions that would take much longer than 15 seconds or 30 seconds to respond to. So we're going to be answering a lot of those questions today about training, working out, and things like that. So get ready. If it looks like I'm cold and bundled up, it's because I am. I have some tea here with me to help me stay warm because we recently just moved to Austin, Texas about 2 weeks ago. And over here in Austin, they actually have seasons. So getting used to that slowly but surely. Getting right into your guys' very first question. Again, a lot of great questions were asked this time around. Very first one, do you have a significant other? Yes. Second question, what's your relationship status? Yes. All right, now getting to the real questions. How long do you train each day? Can we have a new follow along video? So I also, for those who don't follow me on Instagram, every so often kind of do like a Instagram story vlog type day where you can see just how my day goes and things that I do and my workouts and things I eat and things like that, and just general things that I want to share and think are funny to share with you guys. So I'll probably do another one of those again soon. But for me personally, how long I train at the longest it's ever been would be about 2.5 hours, depending on the day. Like if it was a Saturday and I had a lot of free time, it might be upwards of 2.5 hours for a competitive CrossFit style programming. But for currently what I'm doing now, as I am very out of shape and trying to slowly get back into it, I've cut it down to just an hour. And right now it pretty much consists of a warm-up, two strength or accessory pieces, and then a Metcon after that. But I try to get all my training done within like an hour or 90 minutes. People that brag about having 4 or 5 hour training sessions, they're working really hard, but they're not like super highly competitive athletes yet. They're probably just wasting a lot of time in the gym and spending a lot of time in between pieces that they're doing in their programming. It's not about how long you train for, it's about how you approach your training and how serious you take it. You can get a lot done in just an hour, and I've been kicking my own, but plenty fine with just an hour of programming. Next question, thoughts on mechanical adjustable dumbbells? Worth it for a home gym? So this is a great question. I think they are worth it. Now, it's worth it for the person that doesn't plan on doing a lot of things where the dumbbells are going to touch the floor. Like they don't plan on doing dumbbell snatches. They don't plan on doing like man makers or devil's presses, things like that, because I wouldn't want to put a lot of weight on those as they're all very intricate and a lot, if one little thing goes off, I feel like it'd be really hard to put it back in and load different weights every time. So if you follow a more traditional style programming that does a lot of accessory type movements and does a lot of pressing movements and pulling movements and things like that with just dumbbells, but you don't need to do anything really dynamic with them, then yeah, they're totally worth it for the money in my opinion, especially for space too, because that's the biggest thing. Also, it's not just the cost of everything, especially now with how expensive everything's been, but just space and keeping everything nice and neat. And I like the fact that you can go and buy one thing and have multiple things within this one piece of equipment, but then still be able to use it for numerous different weights and different exercises. So I think it's a very great idea, but if you follow very traditional CrossFit style programming, again, with a lot of like dumbbell snatches, devil's presses, and things along those lines, maybe consider otherwise and just grab a pair or two of dumbbells of the weights you most typically think you would use. If trying to do a Metcon after powerlifting, would you create one based off lifts or no? So my understanding of this question is when they say power lifts, they mean traditional like strength training. Like, so let's say for your programming that day, you had deadlifts or you had some type of squat variation or some type of bench press or strict press variation. And then now you're going into a Metcon. Should that Metcon include an exercise that you just used in that strength powerlifting type portion prior to that Metcon? For me personally, when I program and when I do workouts, I like it when you do a strength piece and then do a Metcon after that caters well off of that strength piece. What I mean by that is let's say you did do deadlifts that day. So now you've really taxed your posterior chain, maybe you went really heavy. Now we can go and work that same muscle group as it's already prepped and warmed up and good to go and do more endurance type repetitions and doing more higher reps and lighter weight and doing just pretty much getting the best of both worlds within that certain area of our body that we're focusing on. So I like it when programming has something that caters to the strength over to the Metcon if that's how the program's set up. Another way to look at that would be like, let's say you have snatches. Snatches are super dynamic, so they're great if you want to do jumping workouts after. They're great if you want to do pulling workouts after. Great if you want to do a squat variation after. So I try to make the strength portion somewhat related to the Metcon in my personal training, as well as the training that I create for my athletes. Next question. I just finished the CrossFit Online Level 1. Congratulations. And I start shadowing next week. Any tips? This is a lot can go with this one, as there's a lot of emotions and a lot of excitement, a lot of nervousness and different emotions that go into starting to get into coaching and things like that. The first thing I would do is I would just ask as many questions as possible. So if you're shadowing someone, I'm assuming the coach before you has a good experience level. They've had a lot of knowledge on certain movement patterns, on how to scale movements, on how to mobilize and how to prep bodies appropriately for workouts and things like that. So if you see a coach create a warm-up and takes the class to the warm-up, ask them, hey, why did you do this many rounds of the warm-up? Why this many reps? Why these exercises? And I would just try to be literally like a sponge and try to soak in as much information as you possibly can, because the more you know, the more you realize you don't know, but also the more you know, obviously, the better off you're going to be with helping individuals. Because one thing that there's definitely phases on how much you think you know, and then you dip down and you come back up and dip down again. What I mean by that is as I started coaching for the very first time, after a while you kind of get the hang of it. You get to understand how to approach people, how to communicate, how to talk to people that are the fire breathers, as well as how to talk to people that are just there to be healthy and don't really want to go really fast or anything like that, which is totally fine either way. But then you realize, okay, you have someone come in that literally cannot press a barbell over their head. Like they've had a lifelong injury, or they have incredibly poor mobility to where they can't do it. What do you do in that situation? So learning the different outliers and the less common situations that occur inside of the class or inside of coaching a CrossFit workout are definitely something you want to have in your tool belt once they come up. Because if you have a member drop into your gym and they only have one leg, they use a prosthetic leg in the other one, and they can't really squat to full depth or things like that, you would want to know how you can modify things to help them still get in a great workout. So if someone's incredibly overweight and is like 100 pounds overweight, and they do not have the conditioning to do a 40-minute AMRAP that's programmed for that day, then I would learn and ask, how would you modify this workout for them? Should you cut the reps? Should you cut the time? Should you change the movements? And things like that, because again, those outlier situations are the ones that you should know a little more about. Because CrossFit in a nutshell, once you kind of get the basics down from the level 1 and kind of learn how to implement those things, CrossFit's not that hard to teach. It's really a great, just simple, basic program to get people generally fit. Once people start wanting to become more competitive or really want to learn how to do a muscle up or handstand walks, that's when you got to up the ante and learn as much as you can and learn new things. That was a very long-winded response. This question says, I am really bad with the Olympic lifts. Have to be patient with classes will help, or work on it separately. So there is nothing wrong with putting in a little more time and attention to something to get better at it. Because obviously, if you have someone that comes into a CrossFit class that has a gymnastics background, they're going to crush handstand push-ups and muscle-ups, things like that. So they might need to spend less time doing the little accessory nitty-gritty things to get them to do gymnastics movements. You might have someone come in that's tremendously strong, and they just crush cleans and squats and deadlifts, and they're just absolute animals. Usually when you have someone come from these different backgrounds, they usually aren't as proficient on the other end of the spectrum. So let's say you are someone that just doesn't really click when it comes to dynamic movements, when it comes to the Olympic lifts, comes to the power lifts. Maybe you need more time to kind of get the hang of it and learn the little nitty-gritties of those movements, because they are very complicated. If that is the case, there's nothing wrong with spending an extra 10 to 20 minutes doing empty barbell work, working on positioning, working on doing holds, and working on finding the balance and finding how to move your bar, or you move your body around the bar. However, I don't know how long you've been doing CrossFit for. If you've been doing CrossFit for 2 weeks, take some more time and let yourself just do the classes and get the hang of it. If you've been doing CrossFit for 8 months, still trust in the process. Assess where you are currently compared to where you were at day 1 doing the Olympic lifts. But if you're on a year or more, and it seems like you kind of aren't progressing that much more and your technique isn't feeling that much better, then I would consider going and spending more time doing accessory program. Maybe ask the coach at your gym, or find a coach online, or find a really basic accessory program that you can add on top of the current CrossFit program that you're doing now. However, make sure it's not too much. So if you are doing an hour-long CrossFit class and it's literally kicking your butt, then you go and do 45 minutes of Olympic lift work after every single class, it's going to catch up to you and really beat you up. So I would just make sure if you do decide to go outside of the class and work on a little more, don't go full send on it, and don't go super crazy to where you end up, flatlining and then dipping down really hard. So nothing wrong with doing a little more accessory work. If you grab an empty bar, spend an extra 10 minutes, doing overhead squat holds, doing snatch high pulls and things like that. They can definitely be very beneficial and help you when it comes to workouts within the class. Exercise double press and squat. Yes. How do you calculate band tension specifically for deadlifts? So I like this question because I don't have the answer to it, and this is why I don't have the answer to it. When it comes to CrossFit, it's high intensity, or it's constantly varied high intensity functional movements. Constantly varied being, what you're doing different forms of squats, different forms of pulling, different forms of carries, and you're mixing them up. High intensity, you're going pretty hard. You're going 70, 80, 90% depending on the day. And then functional movements, we're doing things that translate over to our daily lives and things that help you move furniture and do chores around the house without breaking your back. So when it comes to adding bands and adding chains and adding these variances to the workouts, these are a little too specific to where I would believe that someone would need to implement them into their programming. Not to say you can't do that, but I have had numerous people from all different walks of life, all different backgrounds, all different athletic backgrounds. Some people just can't pull the deadlift bar off the floor. So is that the question you asked me, deadlifts? Yeah. Some people can't pull the bar off the floor. Once they hit that plateau, the bar doesn't budge. Some people get really close but can't lock out that last couple inches or two, and then they fail. Some people, their backs just really cave in. So I would program different accessory movements for them to help them tackle that specific weakness of the movement. But chains and bands are, from my personal experience, in my opinion, a little too far into the accessory movement realm to where I think they're really needed. If you're doing like a powerlifting program where you're deadlifting 2 to 3 times a week and you need a good amount of variance to keep challenging your body, because if you said the basic deadlift, the conventional straight up deadlift every single day, you would definitely plateau. You need to do things like add chains, add bands, add pauses, and all that kind of stuff. So for the purpose of CrossFit, I don't use any type of bands or chains. I haven't seen many programs use them, like adding any type of awkward tension like that in their programming. Not to say that there aren't programs out there that do that. Your program probably does do that. But I don't know is my answer to that question, my long-winded answer to that question. In my experience in the realm of CrossFit, it's not really needed. How often do you bench press? All the time. Can't you tell? Well, no. I don't bench press that often. This is a great question, and I'm going to dive really deep into this one. How often do you bench press? Me personally, I bench press like once a month. Not very often. That would be like on the high end. If not, probably less frequent than that. But I know a lot of people, for example, let's say we got off of a deadlift cycle at the gym, and they would go and say, man, that was awesome. I PR'd my deadlift 20 pounds, for example. And the next cycle doesn't have deadlifts as one of the main focus. It's doing, other aspects of functional fitness we want to get better at. And then the member comes up to me that hits that 20-pound PR and says, hey, I PR'd my deadlift. I don't want that PR to go away. So we should keep doing deadlifts. However, that's not how your body works. When it comes to deadlifts, when it comes to cleans, when it comes to sumo deadlift high pulls, when it comes to kettlebell swings, they're all different pieces of equipment. They're all executed differently, but they're all working your posterior chain. So let's say I had a class do 3 sets of 5 heavy deadlifts at like 80%. And let's say a couple weeks later, I have a class do 3 sets of 10 heavy kettlebell swings at like 80, 90, 100 pounds. That can still stimulate your body similar to the way one another does it. So even though a deadlift is not going to hit your backside the same way a kettlebell swing is, if you still program them similarly and still approach them with similar concepts, they are still going to cater off one another. And when it comes to me hitting a bench press, I've only bench pressed on average once a month for my whole CrossFit career, which is coming up on 8 years. Yeah, coming up on 8 years now. Holy cow. And that whole span, I've only averaged once a month for benching. My bench has still gone up. because we do things like burpees, we do things like devil's presses, we do things like hand release push-ups. We do all these things that are still taxing our chest and can still build strength to help us with other similar movement patterns. So you don't have to just deadlift to get good at deadlifts. What other kind of hinging variations can you do to still work those same muscle groups to maintain your deadlift strength, and if anything, still improve your deadlifts? Like I said, I'm not benching very frequently. For me to be able to hit PRs pretty consistently, my chest is still getting worked. I'm still doing lots of dips and the burpees and the hand release push-ups, all of it, because it all comes together. It's really basic once you kind of understand that concept. So should you bench once a week or twice a week? Sure, you could. Do you feel like your pressing is a really lacking area that you can improve on? Bench more often. However, if your programming does have plenty of pressing movements, there are days where your shoulders are sore, your chest is sore, keep doing what you're doing because you're going to get plenty out of that program. We didn't have a whole lot of questions this round through, but I feel like we definitely have broken down these questions a lot. I really enjoyed these questions because there was so much more to unpack with them. But getting into our last one, which is a great one to finish up on, how to approach athletes and tell them to go down in weight for a workout. This was something that when I first started coaching was definitely one of the most awkward and challenging situations to put myself in. When you see an athlete, especially when I first started, because when I first started coaching, I'd only been doing CrossFit for a year at that point. I had just fallen head over heels, was all about it. But at the gym that I was shadowing at, there were members that had been there for 4, 5, 6 years, and probably assume that in their heads that they have a pretty good grasp of what's going on. However, as soon as you think you got everything right, you're doing something wrong, because there's always room for improvement. There's a reason why Olympian athletes have coaches, because if they knew everything, they would just do it themselves and not have a coach. But there's a reason why these coaches exist. So when it comes to approaching them, understand that you are approaching them with the idea of telling them to go down in weight, or maybe scale down to a less difficult movement, or maybe alter reps or alter the time frame, whatever it is. You're going to an athlete to tell them, hey, we need to change this. You can't do this. We need to bump you down a notch or two. The first thing I always do is I relay to them why. I don't go and say, hey, take off that weight, it's too heavy. Because then they go, well, it didn't feel that heavy. But then if I go and explain to them, hey, let's take down the weight a little bit on that barbell, because as soon as that bar left the floor, your shoulders cave forward really hard and you have a really rounded back, and it's definitely going to lead to an injury if we keep letting that bad habit happen. Letting athletes know that, hey, you're doing this and it's going to cause this result, which is poor form equaling most likely bad injuries down the road, whether it be tomorrow, whether it be a few years down the road. That usually gets them to stop right in their tracks right there. However, if it comes to certain athletes, I always try to approach them with the concern in my voice. Like I'm not going up to them and being aggressive about it or being rude about it. I'm letting them know that, hey, how I'm presenting it in my voice, like, I care about you. I don't want you to hurt yourself. I don't want you to be out of commission for a few weeks working out because you've now tweaked something and now things are astray. So I make sure that is a big point. And then the next thing, let's say you have an athlete that's kind of stubborn, and you go up to them and you tell them, hey, let's take it the weight because it's kind of looking this and that, and they kind of give you a rebuttal, or they go, oh, that's not that heavy, or they try to stop you from getting them to alter the movement in some way. What I would do is I'd tell them, hey, no, we have to take this weight down, because with the amount of reps we're doing in this workout, with this weight that you're doing compared to your 1 rep max, it's gonna lead to issues down the road. I can guarantee it, and we're gonna take the weight off. And if they give me sass, I'll go and take the weight off their bar for them and make sure that they're not doing the poor weight, because I would rather have someone be mad at me because I made them go a little bit lighter or change the workout in some way for them, versus them being mad at myself as well as the whole gym because now they've thrown out their back and now they're bedridden for several weeks. So when you set the standard as, I'm the coach that cares about you, wants to make sure you feel good, wants to make sure you don't experience any injuries, then, and you make sure that is your standard, whether someone agrees with you and goes, oh yeah, okay, cool, thanks coach, I'll modify the weight, or no, I think this is a good weight, but you make them change the weight, then they know that, hey, coach so-and-so really is concerned with how we move and really wants us to move well. There are some workouts that are, like Fran, for example, I will purposely go and point out all of the things I want to see before the workout starts. So I say, hey guys, on those thrusters. Make sure we're getting full elbow extension at the top and the head's through the bar. We're not doing any of these funky lean back presses. Make sure we're hitting full depth and keeping those knees out. On the pull-ups, make sure you're getting that full range of motion. You're staying tight, you're not letting yourself just drop down and try to rip your shoulders out of their sockets. Keep yourself engaged the entire time and have a nice smooth kip. I will relay these things prior to the workout so everyone knows what I'm looking for. So that way, if in the workout someone's not hitting depth, I go, lower Steven, lower Scott, and they instantly know, oh, coach is talking about that thing you mentioned earlier, we're going lower in my squat to make sure I hit the standard, things like that. So I try to be proactive as much as I can, let them know, hey guys, these are the standards of the movements, how they should be executed, and these are the faults I'm gonna be looking for. Make sure we're not letting that background. Make sure we're not bottoming out in the squat. Make sure all these different things, so that way we're all on the same page and there's no confusion as to why I would be telling these certain things in the middle of the workout. So, we'll wrap it up there, you guys. Ask me a question, part 2. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you guys want more of these, leave a like, comment down below. If you leave your comment down below, or your question on this video, I'll most likely go ahead and check this video prior to making a part 3. Otherwise, if you're not already, follow me on Instagram at Consigliere Fitness. Check out some of the awesome videos I have on the side over here. Hopefully it's this side. Thanks for watching, everybody, and we'll see you in the next video.